And that's regardless of our good sense, and it's to the detriment of our health, function, and relationships. It's a chemical process. It's happening deep below the thinking regions of the brain and below our conscious capacity to inhibit the continued taking of these drugs. So Jacqueline's addiction, and we can go to the next slide, was a brain disease that disrupted two key systems that regulate all behavior, the reward center and the inhibition center. The reward center has a disruption of healthy motivation, the go signal. In the inhibition center, drugs disrupt the ability to control behavioral impulses, the no-go signal. It's this balance between the go system and the no-go system that helps us be functioning, healthy people, seeking the benefits in our environment and protecting us from the risks. If we want to treat addiction, we have to treat both disruptions. We need a scientifically balanced approach. Next slide. So what does this tell us for the science of prevention? Well, it gives us 3 steps that we can institute right away. Number 1, let's teach our doctors this story. If all health professionals can be taught to prescribe only enough painkillers to reduce pain to the point of allowing healing and function, but not eliminating pain, we can prevent the environment in that health epidemic triangle that I talked to you about. We can prevent the environment from becoming a rich, dangerous, high-risk environment. Another measure for prevention, let's monitor prescriptions. Not on a voluntary basis. Only the good doctors want their medications to be monitored on a voluntary basis. Not every human being who's a physician is careful or good. If all pharmacy services and insurance medication billings are routinely monitored, we can automatically notify every prescriber when patients want too much medication or too many medications, or when more than one pharmacy is filling the medications, or more than one state is filling the medications. These programs shouldn't be state-by-state one-offs as they are today. New Hampshire has finally instituted a prescription monitoring program, but we need a mandated, a nationwide, EHR integrated prescription monitoring system. Third, we can cut overdose deaths in half by broadly prescribing naloxone. This should be over-the-counter. It should be covered by Medicaid and all insurances. Not just the first responders, but to the families, to the friends, to the loved ones. It should be a requirement in counseling that the patient who starts in treatment for an opioid disorder, who starts in detox, should have their significant other come in for a lesson in Narcan. We can cut these deaths in half. We don't withhold EpiPens from people with life-threatening allergies because they'll just be reckless around peanuts, do we? Thank you. I'm from Massachusetts. I say that in New Hampshire, I worry like the data prove that it saves lives and it does not encourage more addiction. But once a patient has the addiction, it's too late for prevention. And it's insufficient to simply scare doctors into cutting off the opioid medications. All that does is drive the patient to street heroin. They have no choice. It is not a conscious decision at that point. It is a chemically driven decision. And our epidemiologists are telling us that that's exactly what's happening. So we need to make treatment accessible, effective, and accountable. Because bad treatment only stimulates more stigma. We've got to fix that. So what is addiction treatment and what is scientific and accountable addiction treatment? Can we go to the next slide, please? Brain science has really deepened our understanding of treatment. And the reward system is a very strong, effective system. It evolved hundreds of millions of years ago, actually at the time of the dinosaurs. And it hasn't changed much since. Now, I'm not talking about the outer thinking region of the brain. I'm talking about the drive system. It's extraordinarily efficient, so evolution preserves this drive system structure. In this brain structure, normal reinforcers like water when we're thirsty, food when we're hungry, or mating when we mature to the point of being able of reproducing, these all release a natural brain chemical, a neurotransmitter called dopamine. Dopamine signals our brain to persist in behaviors that promote survival of the species. And drugs of abuse cause the release of dopamine, but more release than normal healthy behaviors and faster release than normal healthy behaviors. So drugs cause us to memorize these drug-seeking behaviors at the expense of healthy behaviors. The brain science also teaches us that both the positive reinforcement of excessive reward and the negative reinforcement of withdrawal pain are chemical processes that target the deep brain structure in our skull called the limbic system. Now, what is this limbic system? I haven't heard about that much. Well, this is a system that's deeper. It's the pink area on the slide. It's below the outer thinking cortex, where we learn and we think and we consciously make choices. The limbic system evolved in organisms as primitive as the lizard, and our human version isn't actually much different in size or structure. It's responsible for primordial drives, a mother's breastfeeding response to an infant's cry for milk. Although human beings have an enormous, sophisticated outer cortex, the function of the thinking brain, the outer cortex, is to serve the limbic system. It's the limbic system's chemical drives that recruit all the thinking neurons of the cortex to do its bidding. We get very good at that. But it doesn't matter that we have much more cortex. That doesn't help us think our way out of a chemical addiction. So, what does that tell us about addiction treatment? Well, there are hundreds of studies, hundreds, as many as in many areas of general medicine, that tell us that we can treat addiction effectively with evidence-based treatments. Medical detox is the first stage. It's expert at overcoming the negative reinforcement of opioid withdrawal, but only if it's provided long enough and with adequate medication. But there's a risk if we mismanage withdrawal, too brief or too little a dose, and the withdrawal and the craving not only recur, but the studies show it recurs with a vengeance, worse than before the patient entered detox. So short detox phases actually make our problem worse. And detox itself is no longer considered treatment. It is medical stabilization, but it is not a recovery process. So following detox, what the brain needs is to stabilize in a post-withdrawal craving process. Now, this post-withdrawal craving can go on for months. I participated in a study that we published in Lancet that found that opioid craving after detox persisted for 6 months at least on average, even during counseling. So that's a chemical process, that craving. That trips patients up with relapse. Counseling is happening once or twice a week. They're craving minutes, hours, days, weekends, holidays, nights. That's not when the sessions are happening. So we need medical stabilization of that craving. And we know that this medication can counteract the cravings, it can block the rewards of opioids, so that if there's a relapse, it doesn't do that much. We know that it can block the innumerable daily signals that trigger craving, the cues in the environment. Even if somebody's motivation is strong, those cues trigger the craving. So anti-craving medications, such as methadone, buprenorphine, or Suboxone, they provide effective chemical stabilization of early recovery. And again, only if the dose is sufficient and the treatment is long enough. Now, that's chemical stabilization. But that's not the solution either. In fact, that can exacerbate the problem too. What's next? Well, after stabilizing withdrawal and craving, this is when the hard work really begins. This is what we mean by recovery, and we haven't started recovery until now. The chemically stable brain is a brain that's capable of learning. It's a brain that's capable of growing again. So chemical stabilization is a necessary but insufficient precondition for recovery. It's the foundation. And now we've got to do the framing and the siding and the roofing. Otherwise, this structure isn't safe for the stormy winter of relapse. That construction project is the work of professional counseling, and it's the work of the recovery movement. We now know this not just from experience, but from science as well. People who are emerging from addiction need to accept their disease, need to know their vulnerabilities. They need to anticipate their risk factors. They need to master new coping behaviors. They have to construct healthy relationships, find purpose in life. Whether you call it spirituality or something else, it's beyond the individual, and they have to find those things. And most important of all, they have to learn how to insulate themselves from exposure to the drugs that trigger relapse, even in times of stress. This is the work of recovery. And research has generated formal treatment manuals to guide counselors to deliver these treatments effectively. And those manuals need to be used. Now, it always raises the question, and the next slide brings this up, is medication better or is counseling better? And the answer is yes. Both are essential. They must be provided hand in hand, integrated. They're usually, unfortunately, provided in segregated fashion. We keep trying to fight this disease with one hand tied behind our backs and blaming the patient for failing. The payers, especially government, have the power to fix this. A scientifically grounded policy should require programs to provide access to all FDA-approved medications and the full range of evidence-based counseling and other psychosocial models. Next slide, please. What about newer medications, like extended-release antagonists? Well, conventional approaches have some limitations, although studies consistently prove that methadone and buprenorphine, Suboxone, can achieve harm reduction and can dramatically stabilize patients. Because they're slow acting, they're low onset, they don't produce euphoria, they don't give a high. They allow the patient, especially a patient with a chaotic lifestyle, who can't get back to any semblance of normal routine, to get back to a life. Study after study after study shows this. But the data also show that many people don't accept these medications. They don't stick to them. Or they relapse despite the medication. There is a diversion problem. A newer injected medication is a blocker or antagonist at the brain's opioid receptors. Even if the patient uses, it literally blocks the effects of the opioid, and it does it for 30 days on one injection. This treatment, extended-release naltrexone or Vivitrol, is a non-narcotic approach, and it's the only agent proven to be effective for relapse prevention. So there's no single medicine that's right for everybody. What is right is that the treatment program should provide access to all of these FDA-approved options, and they need providers who have experience with all these options. Otherwise, the patient has to hunt down what they think they need. That's not a person who's in a condition to be making those decisions. A care system has to make that decision and make the offerings available free. Next slide, please. Now, there's research on counseling models that are alternatives to the old ways. And I want to talk about contingency management. This newer counseling approach helps the brain reward center come back to chemically full function after months or years of being desensitized by the overwhelming excessive reward of opiate drugs. It's called contingency management. It's by far the most effective counseling model bar none, and it's as potent as any medication. It's a counseling model. But the way it works is it actually pays the patient cash or other incentives and provides sanctions in small but progressively growing amounts. And this precisely cues the chemical brain to begin feeling that normal, healthy dopamine chemical reward, but now for healthy brain behaviors, like turning in negative urines on drug screens, or showing up on time for counseling appointments. Virtually every single study done finds this to be effective, and yet contingency management is almost never used. Our state substance abuse agencies must fix that. Now, is treatment enough? No. There's another feature that we need to introduce widespread, and that's recovery support services. This comes patient with addiction finds every excuse to not make it to treatment and not stay in recovery. Now, Vermont has instituted an innovative hub-and-spoke delivery model, and that's a very good system for introducing recovery support services. We should be doing this everywhere. It uses peer counselors. They may not have a degree. They may not be professionally trained counselors, but they're in recovery themselves. They know how to get patients to treatment. They know how to check in and on outcomes. They know how to get the patient into an AA meeting, whether it means driving them, holding their hand, taking them on the bus. They know how to stand right beside a newly recovering patient at a job interview or to apply for their benefits for vital emotional support. Our state substance abuse agencies and Medicaid need to pay for and integrate recovery support services into the overall system of care now. I want to talk about the justice system for a moment. America's addiction warehouse is the justice system. And poll data tell us that Americans are politically ready to trade incarceration for treatment, if it's effective. But it's not effective to just do a wholesale discharge of people from prison into the streets without a place for them to get care. We will pay the price for that. It's bad for public health, it's bad for public safety. We need to ramp up access to care for the hundreds of thousands of patients coming out of jails and prisons, and at the same time that we have an opioid epidemic. I mean, talk about a perfect storm. So let's fix this manpower and service delivery shortage, or else we'll pay the price. Now, people leaving prison after an opioid-related offense got them in have 100 times the death rate of the general population. And it's due to craving and relapse and overdose. That's astounding, and it's deadly. But many jurisdictions around the country have already initiated the solution: a pre-release injection of extended-release naltrexone with insurance coverage immediately upon release and with engagement directly into counseling treatment under parole monitoring. It's working in Governor Kasich's Ohio, actually. It's working in Governor Bush's Florida. It's working in Massachusetts next door, at Rikers Island in New York City, and many other places. Let's do it nationally. Is addiction treatment only about getting medication and care and nurturance and support? Well, that notion actually riles some people. It does. And actually, brain science teaches us that support and providing healthy rewards is only part of the answer. It's not the whole answer. I told you the two brain systems, the go and the no-go systems, are damaged by addiction. So we need at least two approaches to treatment. Certainly, the reward system responds to medication stabilization and to counseling and support. But the impaired inhibitory control system also needs something. A heightened level of warnings, cautions, sanctions, monitoring, and punishments to perceive the risks of continued drug abuse and to marshal the brain's efforts to protect against relapse. Studies have conclusively shown most people seek treatment for this problem, not because it's a good New Year's resolution, It's because of coercion. It's some dramatic threat of a divorce, a bankruptcy, or an arrest. Studies also show that coercion is an asset to recovery. Probation, parole, job, custody sanctions. They're actually helpful, but only if they're done right. And we aren't doing them right. We should have learned this from Pavlov. It's counterproductive to use massive punishments like 3 strikes and you're out. It's worthless to have ridiculously delayed court proceedings that resolve eons after an offense. The brain doesn't learn from that. Instead, researchers have proven the best outcomes occur with continuous monitoring of urine outcomes, attendance, rapid response of graduated punishments that are tailored to fit the violation. Programs such as Hawaii's HOPE or South Dakota's 24/7 sobriety program, they reduce relapse. They reduce safety risks. They reduce domestic violence. I mean, it goes beyond drug use. They reduce cost, improve public safety and public health. Let's do it nationwide. And finally, the best outcomes in society aren't from the easiest patients. You don't have to have just good, easy patients to show good results. Some of the toughest patients in the world are doctors who are addicted. Why? Well, they're very tough because they have lots of access to drugs. And they're smart, so their limbic system can recruit a big cortex to figure out how to hide, deny, and be surreptitious and covert. But addicted doctors have the best recovery rates of anyone. 75 to 90% are abstinent and stable in recovery 5 years later. That beats a lot of bad cancers. So why is it so good? Well, it's because society uses a balanced approach with doctors. We have the supports, the medication, we have the monitoring and the sanctions. You balance these things carefully, according to science, you're going to get good results. Let's do it for everybody. You know, instead of the crisis we can have long-term effective, societally congruent prevention and treatment. But we've got to defrag the system, folks. This is a hard drive that it's not just slowed down. It's ready for replacement. We need to integrate all of the services, the payment sources, the policies, so that the patient who will fall through any gap we allow in the system is pulled across, channeled through into recovery so that the brain's natural resilience can return. That resilience was on stage here. Governor Kasich showed what resilience is like. Resilience takes somebody from a car and living in the streets to Princeton, okay? We have that ability. The brain hasn't lost that, no matter how bad the addiction. So, we can't pay into a bottomless hole, a fee for service, because each relapse allows for more service and more fee. That's not a way to do it. So let's fix that. And let's hold programs accountable. Let's have them measured. The American Society of Addiction Medicine, ASIM, has criteria for who should get what treatment. Let's use those criteria uniformly. My institute, the Treatment Research Institute, has developed a consumer guide. It looks just like consumer reports. You can see what program has what quality for what kind of problems that your loved one or the patient you want to refer might need. Let's use the consumer guide across states. And the 3 acts of Congress that make this work are the ACA that has brought millions of people who need this treatment into insurance. Number 2, the HITECH Act, which makes electronic monitoring really feasible. But it's not available for addiction. Let's fix that. And the parity law was passed in 2008. Come on, folks, let's make it work already. We have more deaths from opiates than from car accidents. But when we had a peak of car accidents in this country, our leadership politically called for airbags in every car. Now, that's about $1,000 per car. There are 8 million cars made in America and sold each year. That's $8 billion a year for airbags. We have people crashing from opiates. Can we put some money there, please? They're my family members. They're my friends' children who have died, our neighbors. They are us. We've done the science. We have the technology to soften the addiction crash, too. We have the airbags for addiction. Science has done its job. We know what to do. It's time to make America's crisis worth the capital and political investment. Thank you.